D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, David Janes here with you. Willie Donick will join us to start the second hour. The Nashville Predators are in Buffalo to take on the Sabres. Puck drop at 6, pregame at 5, right here on 1025, 1063 The Game. Derek, before the show, Nick Frazier asked me if I participated in Dry January.
Okay.
And I told him no, because I don't drink a lot anyway. So I guess I did, because I didn't drink anything in January, anything alcoholic, I should say. But then I said, I like to imbibe. There's a big word for you.
Imbibe.
I like to imbibe.
Okay.
When I can. I usually save it for special occasions. And Nick and David were asking me about what kind of drinks I like to drink. And David said, you seem like a martini kind of guy. I think you both have this opinion that I'm some sort of high society type person. I don't know if I've ever had a martini in my life. Maybe it's the thick glasses. Maybe it's the big words. I don't know.
It's a little bit of, the big glasses.
You give me a little bit more credit.
Martini dry.
Yes. You give me a little bit more credit than I deserve.
Add the dry.
When I do drink, I like a Moscow Mule.
Okay.
I can get down on a margarita at times, but yeah. You guys think I'm smarter than I actually am. Or
well, it's not our fault. You said our words.
I do say
it's not
big
our fault. Before you got on the show, we didn't use words like imbibe. You know what I mean?
I didn't know what that means.
Exactly. Just being honest here.
I am.
I got Tennessee public education. I'm sorry.
I am
B-I-B-E.
Yep.
Imbibe.
Imbibe. See, we didn't use words like that before he came on.
Exactly.
I appreciate the sort of the education
I like
that I'm
having
getting
a better
in regards
vocabulary.
to our vocabulary, man. You are upping our vocabulary.
All right.
I appreciate it.
At least I'm helping in some form or fashion. Before we start today's show, I want to give a shout out to Michaela Blakes of the Vanderbilt women's basketball program. Vanderbilt beat Florida last night 99-86. Michaela Blakes scored an SEC women's basketball record 53 points against the Gators last night. Her point total is also the second most points by a freshman in Division I history, behind Delaware's Elena Deladon, who scored 54 as a freshman in 2010. So I just want to give a shout out to Michaela Blakes. She had 33 points in her previous game against Alabama. Her previous season high was 36 points. She's also the only Division I player, men's or women's, to score at least 50 points in the game this season. So just want to give a shout out to Michaela Blakes for an epic performance for the Vanderbilt women last night against Florida.
Hey, man, Vandy's doing it. I swear. It seems like the program is taking a turn, and it's very noticeable. 53 points by Michaela last night. You got Vandy women knocking off Alabama. You got Vandy men's knocking off Kentucky and UT. The football team doing what they did. And obviously we're waiting on the baseball team. We know more than likely they are going to be good as well. So the sports programs in Nashville, over at Vandy, are starting to are on the uptick, may I say.
I do have a soft spot for the Blakes family. Her brother Jalen played at Duke for several years. He has since transferred to Stanford, where a few weeks ago had a buzzer beater to beat Carolina at the Dean Dome, which was awesome. So shout out to the entire Blakes family, but specifically Michaela for her 53-point performance last night for Vanderbilt. Derek.
Yes.
We're going to talk about something that's near and dear to your heart, and that is the position of wide receiver. I was listening to Paul Kaharski's podcast yesterday. He was doing an interesting look at the draft capital that the Titans have spent at the receiver position over the past few years. I believe it was since 2021. And surprisingly, in terms of the Jimmy Johnson, I believe it was the Jimmy Johnson draft pick value chart,
Yes.
the Titans ranked right in the middle of the league in terms of the total points they've spent on wide receivers over the past few years, mostly because they spent a first-round pick on Treylon Burks.
Mhm.
But I went back and I looked at Titans drafted receivers since 2020. I'm going to go from most recent to down to 2020. They spent a 6th-round pick on Jaquan Jackson in 2024, a 7th-round pick on Colton Dowell in 2023, of course, a 1st-round pick on Treylon Burks in 2022, a 5th-round pick on Kyle Phillips in 2022, a 4th-round pick on Des Fitzpatrick in 2021, and a 6th-round pick on Racey McMath in 2021. So outside of Treylon Burks, the Titans have not prioritized drafting receivers over the past few years. And Treylon Burks, who the most talented of the group, certainly, as we know, has not panned out with the Tennessee Titans. But the Titans need a receiver. And specifically, Derek, I think they need a young receiver. They have Calvin Ridley under contract. They traded DeAndre Hopkins. Nick Westbrook-Akine and Tyler Boyd are free agents. So wide receiver needs to be a priority for this team. The Titans are not going to be in a position unless they decide to draft Travis Hunter with the number 1 overall pick, who can play receiver. Unless they draft Travis Hunter, they're probably not going to be in a position to draft one of the top receivers in this draft, such as Tate McMillan out of Arizona or Luther Burden out of Missouri. I was looking at some of the receivers that have stood out at the Senior Bowl who could be available maybe day 2, 2nd round, something like that. But the Titans, Derek, I feel absolutely need to prioritize the wide receiver position, but I think it needs to be a drafted wide receiver that they can have on their team for many years versus going out and spending money on a free agent wide receiver, which they did last year, bringing in Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to have to come a point where they develop their own receiver. They did it somewhat with AJ, but then chose to trade him away because they didn't want to pay him. They haven't done it with Treylon. You saw something in there, but then all of a sudden it was like a flicker. Then all of a sudden it went out. He can't stay on the field. And then other guys that they've tried, it just hadn't worked out. I would say the only guy really is Nick Westbrook-Akine. And was he a late pick or
he was an undrafted free agent?
He was
an undrafted
free agent. That's probably, amongst all the receivers that they've drafted after AJ Brown, I think Nick Westbrook-Akine has gotten them the most value because he was a free agent, a rookie free agent, and now him being, a kid had 9 touchdowns this last season. So for whatever reason, it's been 2 positions that they have not hit on, and they have not been able to develop. And that's the quarterback, and that's outside of some other things. But I think mainly in today's football, the 2 most critical ones are 2 of the most critical ones are quarterback and receiver, and they haven't been able to develop those guys outside of one guy, and that's AJ Brown. You look at the quarterbacks that they've drafted; they hadn't been able to develop them.
Why do you think that is? Specifically with receiver, why do you think that is?
Because I don't think the premium is on a big time receiver. I don't think they drafted AJ Brown and said he's going to be our big time number 1 guy. He's going to be one of the best receivers in the league. I don't think they drafted him thinking that. I think they drafted him because if they would have had that thought, they would have drafted him in the 1st round. I think they drafted him like, okay, he can be a complement he could be another asset for our offense. We can tie him with Corey Davis, and we can have a good tandem of wide receivers, which that is indeed what happened. But I don't think they set out and thought AJ would be AJ and that he is now and drafted him. So I don't think they put a priority toward the receivers. I don't think they've ever truly, since they've been here in Nashville, I don't think they've ever truly put in like, we are going to prioritize this guy at this position, wide receiver position, and we're going to draft him. Again, they drafted Kevin Dyson in the 1st round, but I don't think that was like, okay, we drafting Kevin, and they just thought Kevin would be a really good player and be another addition to what we were doing on offense. He would be our number 1 guy, But I don't think they've ever prioritized that position at all. They've always went cheap outside of Calvin Ridley and probably Yancey Thigpen back then. They have not sort of went out and paid the money they would have needed to pay to a big time receiver to bring him here. They just haven't done it. You could say Randy Moss, but not really.
That was the tail end.
Exactly. That was like a hope and a prayer. Come in, see if it works. It didn't work, so then they moved on.
I'm just looking at the draft history of Titans receivers. Of course, A.J. Brown, the gold standard here as a second-round pick in 2019. Corey Davis in the first round, number 5 overall in 2017. Corey Davis did not have the career commensurate with a number 5 overall pick. Taywan Taylor in the third round of 2017. Then you're going far. Dorial Green Beckham, oof, and the second round of 2015. Just hasn't been a priority for the Titans in recent years.
I don't think receiver has ever. Again, I don't think the receiver position itself. And I know they've drafted guys in the first round. Kevin, I'm forgetting the kid's name now. Out of Central Michigan.
Was that Corey Davis?
Corey Davis,
yes.
Kevin, Corey Davis. Who else they drafted in the first round? I think those were the only 2 wide receivers since they've been here that Kenny Britt. That's another one. I forgot Kenny Britt. So you got Kenny Britt. So you've drafted 3 receivers and Traylon Burks, you throw him in there. You've drafted 4 receivers in 25 years in the first round. You don't value that pick at all. Or you don't value that position the way you value a running back or a quarterback or a left tackle or defensive end. You just don't, and you've never valued that pick. That position like that.
By my quick math here, so first round receivers drafted by the Titans: Kevin Dyson, Kenny Britt, Kendall Wright,
yes,
Corey Davis, and Traylon Burks. Yes. That's it. 5 first round receivers.
One every 5 years.
I feel like they need to change that.
Yes, I mean the way the NFL is going, you need to have playmakers on the outside, and you need to have that quarterback that can deliver them the ball. So I think now whether they draft a receiver first round this year or not, I don't know. More than likely they will not. But they need to start prioritizing that position, build up that position, do what Chicago did, but sort of in the reverse. You draft some guys. Well, you would be doing what Chicago did.
Well, they drafted Rome Odunze, but they brought in Keenan Allen. They had DJ Moore.
And DJ Moore was young. So if you do that, surround your quarterback, whoever your guy is going to be, surround your quarterback with legit playmakers, then I think you will see a different version of whoever you put underneath center. Ask Sam Darnold.
I'm looking at wide receivers who have stood out at the Senior Bowl. One name I've read a few times already is Jack Beck out of TCU, who was actually a Vanderbilt commit originally before flipping his commitment to LSU. He was there for a couple of years and then went in the portal to TCU. I even read something about comparing him to Puka Nacua. Could he be that, mid-round receiver that could blossom like Puka Nacua has for the Los Angeles Rams? Again, we talked this week about making these comparisons, and they're often too lofty. But I think that the Titans, look, I've read lists of the top free agents available. T. Higgins is expected to be available. I can't imagine the Titans spending that much money bringing in T. Higgins, considering how much money they spent to bring in Calvin Ridley. So I just think they need to prioritize the receiver position in the draft. Now, if they don't use the number 1 pick, they trade down, accumulate more assets, maybe they can get one of these receivers that's maybe on the 5, 6, 7 line on big boards everywhere. But I just think the fact that right now the receivers you have under contract are Calvin Ridley and Traylon Burks. Do we expect Tyler Boyd to be back next season?
I don't think Tyler Boyd will be back. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, I think he's earned the right to sign another contract.
They would be wise to bring him in, but is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine despite the
But
excellent.
he's earned himself. He's earned himself a couple of more dollars by the season
Absolutely.
he's had.
He had an incredible back half of the season
Mhm.
after not being targeted in like the first 4 or 5 games for some reason. Like, is that a sustainable
Mhm.
touchdown ratio
Yeah.
for Nick Westbrook-Ikhine? Probably not. But is he if he was your wide receiver too, if you had Calvin Ridley at 1, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine at 2, and then insert rookie wide receiver here as 3. Would that be suitable? I'm not sure.
No, I think you still would need another because listen, as much as I think Nick Westbrook-Ikhine helped himself in this year's crop of free agent wide receivers, I think you do need to try to upgrade that position. You need to upgrade that third wide receiver position because right now, frankly, hell, you don't even have a number 2 at this point because you don't know. I've stopped counting on whether Trey Lance going to be on the field or not.
That ship has
yeah,
sailed.
so basically you're down to just one guy. So you have to find you a second wide receiver as well as a third wide receiver. So listen, you may be, because of the circumstances, you may have to bring Nick Westbrook-Ikhine back, but I do believe you got to get somebody high in the draft at the wide receiver position. I understand you find gems in a 4th round, 5th round. I get that all day, every day. But I think this one, I think you got to find an immediate guy right now that can play the minute he gets here.
615-737-1025. What are your thoughts on what the Titans should do at the wide receiver position this offseason, be it through the draft, free agency, you name it. You let us know. We'll get to your calls and your texts. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. Nashville's best deal this week is Single Tree Barbecue in Murfreesboro. Single Tree Barbecue is a local veteran-owned and operated business only serving world-class barbecue with the perfect combinations of sides and desserts. Get half off a $25 gift card now while supplies last at theGameNashville.com/deals. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here talking Titans wide receivers and what they should do this offseason. Daryl is in Hendersonville. He's on our phone line driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. Daryl, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good to talk to you.
You as well.
D-Mace, I'm going to respectfully disagree with your contention that the Titans don't put an emphasis on wide receiver. Number one, because I think the Titans are on their fifth general manager since you played. I don't know if it's 4 or 5 head coaches since you played. The only commonality that you've had since you played among those different regimes was the Adams family and the fact they play in Nashville. Everything else is different from regime to regime. So it just so happened to work out that the wide receivers were not they did a terrible job of drafting and free agents, but they have certainly put the resources into it. They put five number one draft picks in the last I don't know how many years that was, Adam. But none of them worked out, except and the only one that did was a second rounder that they made a terrible decision and traded away. The problem is they continually, whoever is running the Titans and from the general manager and the coach's standpoint, they have drafted badly for probably 16 or 17 out of the last 20 years. And it's finally caught up with them. And they have so many holes. Well, okay, let's say just for argument's sake, let's draft a wide receiver this year because this is a new game, which is really not. I mean, offenses have been wide open since the days of Dan Marino. You could probably go even before that. But, let's say we're going to draft a wide receiver. Well, what are we going to do with right tackle? What are we going to do with quarterback? There's so many holes to fill. It's difficult, I'm sure, for the general manager to say, all right, here's the best player available. I'm going to weigh that against where my biggest holes are. And there's only so many number one draft picks. And when you trade picks away to bet on the future with a free agent who doesn't work out, what do? You got to have a general manager who doesn't have his head up his rear end. And hopefully the new guy will be like that. But it remains to be seen. But I don't think it's a question of prioritization. It's a question of judgment or players just not being the right ones for that particular position, wide receiver, right tackle, quarterback, or whatever.
Thanks for the call, Daryl.
Thank you, Daryl. When I talk about they don't prioritize the wide receiver position the way I believe they need to, I mean, every team has a board. And every team has just like they don't prioritize the middle linebacker the way they prioritize the left tackle, or they may not. Some teams may prioritize the safety position a little bit more than they do the outside backer. So every team has, the position from greatest to least. And to me, I just don't think the Titans, when they look at that position, they believe that they can get away with not necessarily the best guy, but we can get away with a guy that's good. We can get away with that guy because of the brand of sort of football that we play. We run the football, and if we have a bunch of just good guys, we'll be fine. Well, you got to understand in this league, you have to have that great guy. You have to have that guy that is going to generate attention on the other side of the ball. And outside of A.J. Brown, the Titans haven't had that guy. Now, Calvin Ridley started to come on the second half of the season, but ever since the minute they got A.J. Green and he started to prove that he was that guy, teams started game planning for him. How do we get him out of the game? You have to have one of those guys. If not, your quarterback better be Josh Allen. Because Josh doesn't have one of those guys. But what he does, he's so good that he can make up for not having a superstar wide receiver. I just think you need one of those guys in today's football, or it makes your job easier as a quarterback. Again, ask Sam Darnold. He'll tell you, yeah, my job is a lot easier when Jefferson's on the field as opposed to anybody else.
One texter says, man, how Titans is it to have the #1 pick in the worst draft? I mean, look, sometimes that's just the luck or bad luck of the draw.
Well, it's the worst draft in regard. I'm not going to even say it's the worst draft. It's not a draft that is high on the position that they need most dearly. That's quarterback.
Right. There is not a clear-cut slam dunk. This guy is going to be the #1 overall pick, even at quarterback, but at any position. It feels like there's a lot of hemming and hawing, like Cam Ward could be this, Shedeur Sanders could be that. There's no, this guy is going to be that. It feels like.
And I get outside of Travis Hunter, and some are probably Abdul Carter. He's probably the closest. I would tend to agree. Maybe but here's the thing. The draft is dictated and pushed by quarterbacks. If you have 2 or 3 guys, like dudes, then it makes everybody's going to look at the draft. Even if it's a bad draft, it's still a good draft because you have 3 to 4 really good quarterbacks. So the quarterbacks typically push the NFL draft, at least the first half of the draft. Because why isn't it? You got Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, 2 guys that if they were coming out last year, they still would have been, to me, top 10 picks, or top 5 picks. So you're telling me you have these 2 guys and nobody's clamoring trying to get these 2 guys, or nobody's really making noise about these 2 guys? Because these 2 guys, to me, are guys that can come in the NFL and change it very quickly. It's more likely they will do it than not. Let's just say that. It's not a surefire, but it's more likely they would do it than not. But the problem is you don't have quarterbacks. If Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward were elite like that, like the top 2 last year, it will raise the profile of Hunter and Abdul Carter. It may be some other people, but because you don't have a draft. Look at the last time the draft wasn't heavy with quarterbacks a couple of years ago. Everybody was saying that's a bad draft. Oh, it's a bad draft. There turned out some really good players. They got drafted in the first round, but when the draft is not being led by quarterbacks, it doesn't get that sizzle that it needs entering, sort of that offseason and coaches evaluating college players.
I think you're referring to the 2022 draft.
When there was only 1 quarterback drafted in the first round, I think, or that was a second round pick.
I'm taking a look. Was that the Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, that
draft?
was
Kenny Pickett
draft.
draft.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm looking at. I mean, that was the Travon Walker was the #1 pick in that draft. But looking at some of the other players that were drafted in that draft, Aiden Hutchinson was drafted 2nd overall. Sauce Gardner 4th overall. Derek Stingley Jr. 3rd overall. Garrett Wilson was 10th. Jameson Williams, not Jameis Winston. Jameson Williams was 12th. Yeah, I mean, there were some good players. That's just first round picks, by the way.
But even the draft, I think, when was Malik Willis draft?
That was the 2022 draft.
That's
right?
that draft, right?
I think so.
Yeah, that's the 2022 draft. So because it wasn't heavy in quarterbacks as far as at the upper part of the first round, then it doesn't get the sizzle that it would if there were 3 or 4 quarterbacks coming out.
Trey is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Honda.com. Trey, what's going on?
Hey, how y'all doing today?
Doing good, Trey.
Hey, I wanted to ask y'all, okay, the 2 young men that's the quarterback, Ward and Sanders, right?
Yes.
So a lot of people know that they have talent, okay? But as far as the skill set, all I've been hearing around it, they can't, read the defenses. They get sacked a lot. And so I wanted to ask y'all, do y'all value talent more than skill set, or the skill set override talent when it comes to Dart, Ward, and Sanders? And y'all have a good day. Thank you, because I would want somebody with skills rather than talent, me personally.
Thanks for the call, Trey. That's a good question, Derek. How would you answer that?
I think that's where the 2 guys are at now when you're evaluating them. The word should have been potential. the potential of Cam Ward is a little bit higher. What Cam Ward can potentially be. Like, he doesn't have all the tools right now, but what he can potentially be is there. We see it. And we just got to hone in on it. He has to develop as a quarterback. Whereas Shedeur, I think you see more of the finished product. He's poised, he's calm, he's fluid in what he does. He's smooth at throwing the football. He can make the level throws. Does he have this exciting strong arm? No, but he knows how to throw in certain situations. He's been coached up very well. So if you want a guy like he's the equivalent to me of Kirk Cousins right now. That's just what he is. Like, he's going to read the field the way he needs to read the field. Does he have the flashy arm? No. I think he may be a little bit more mobile than Kirk Cousins was, even coming out of college. But can Kirk make all those throws? Can he make the level throws? Yeah, Kirk can make the level throws. Is Kirk a rhythm thrower? Yes. Is he accurate? Yes. That's all the things that Shedeur Sanders is.
Because he's also safe with the football too.
Exactly. He's safe. He doesn't throw the ball in harm's way. So do you want a guy like that you pretty much, yeah, he's going to get better and develop, but it's going to be developing even more from a mental standpoint, but not from a physical standpoint. So would you rather have that guy, or would you rather have Cam Ward, who may not have what Shedeur has now, but the physical attributes, man, they're out there. They're there, and they can get better. And if that aligns up with him developing, mentally, then we got it. But Shedeur's there already, I think, mentally. But we know his ceiling physically. His arm's not going to get no stronger than what it is now. So which one of them do you want? That's what I think GMs are sort of down to with those two guys right now.
615-737-1025. By the way, since yesterday, we talked to Bill Haslam. We discussed the Nashville Supergroups, a bid for an WNBA franchise, I should say. It appears they have some competition. The Detroit group has some heavy hitters in it as well. It's being led by the owner of the Detroit Pistons, but it also includes the principal owner of the Detroit Lions, Sheila Hamp. Grant Hill, of course, made his career with the Detroit Pistons. Chris Webber, Jared Goff, the CEO and chair of General Motors. So for those of you who yesterday said that the WNBA is a failing league and nobody wants to be a part of it, that's a group of heavy hitters. The Nashville group certainly has some competition. 615-737-1025. Speaking of free agents, there is a free agent out there that I hear there's a position that a lot of Titans fans say, well, it doesn't matter what you do at quarterback because we need to fortify this position. Well, there is a player out there that could be available that has ties to this state and now this organization. And we'll discuss that next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, the Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick expected to join us to start the second hour. Predators and Sabres tonight. Puck drop at 6, pregame at 5, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. So, Derek, a lot of times when we're talking about what the Titans should do with this number 1 pick, whether it's a quarterback, trade down, whatever, we get calls, we get texts from people who say, it doesn't matter what they do at those positions if they don't have an offensive line, right? We get that a lot. There is an offensive lineman who could become available. I stress this, could become available this offseason, who might check a lot of these boxes. He has ties to the state. He played at Tennessee. He has ties to Mike Borgonzi because he plays in Kansas City. And that would be Trey Smith. Trey Smith, his rookie deal is up. He was a 6th-round pick, so the Chiefs don't hold a 5th-year option on him. Dan Graziano at ESPN.com predicts that Trey Smith will get a contract for 5 years, $105 million with $65 million guaranteed, which would tie for first among guards in annual average value. Graziano writes, quote, the Eagles' Landon Dickerson is at the top of the guard market, earning $21 million per year. Based on what I'm hearing, Graziano, it shouldn't be a problem for the Chiefs to give Smith a deal that at least matches that in terms of annual value and tops the $63 million in guarantees that Robert Hunt got from the Panthers. So if Trey Smith were to come available, or even if the Chiefs remain the front runners for his services, Mike Borgonzi knows how impactful Trey Smith can be. According to Graziano, Smith's 95.6% pass block win rate since entering the NFL in 2021 ranks 2nd at guard behind only Joe Thuney, who also plays for the Chiefs, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot to like about Trey Smith. It would cost you an arm and a leg. But for Titans fans who want the team to fortify the offensive line, specifically the right side of the offensive line, should the Titans at least make an attempt to bring in Trey Smith?
Absolutely. Why not? I mean, listen, I'm sure you've earmarked some positions that you would like to sort of upgrade via free agency. Now, he's already said, Brinker has already said, and Borgonzi as well, is that, listen, the draft is sort of like supplementing. It's not how we're going to build our team. So even with that, I think a guy like Trey Smith, who's only 25 years old, I think you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. I think you can get a guy that's young enough that is still developing. He's a really good player now, and he's still developing. And you can get him and solidify that right side of the offensive line, I believe. Now, again, just because they go out and get Trey Smith doesn't mean that automatically you're going to reap the rewards from it, because the offensive line is one of those, positions where playing together is better. It's sometimes better than having 5, guys, really, really good guys. It's hard to throw 5 really good guys together and say it should be instant right now. But I would rather have sometimes 5 guys that are good, but have been together a while. So they go out and they get Trey. They solidify their offensive line, I believe. And then you go out and you go get you a right guard via the draft. So I'm sure they're going to make a huge push for him. Now, what's fighting against them is Trey is still, he would be just finishing his rookie contract. So Kansas City can franchise tag him. Or if indeed they franchise tag him, what would you be willing to give up to get him on your team? You see what I'm saying? Because the only way you can get him is if, Kansas City don't franchise tag him. That's the only way you get him. And I don't think they're not going to franchise tag him unless there's other priorities in other areas that they feel they need to get a big time player with a big time contract. And maybe wide receiver is that position where they choose to get the wide receiver instead of signing back the really good right tackle.
I don't pretend to know every guard.
I mean, right guard. Not
I don't
tackle.
pretend to know every guard in the NFL. It's not a position I think about a lot. I don't spend my time thinking about who's the best left guard in the NFL. What about the best right guard? I don't do that. Liam on our text line says, no, we don't need the best guard. I understand that in terms of not spending top dollar on the best guard. But have you seen this Titans offensive line over the past few years?
Exactly.
Specifically, the right side of the offensive line? Don't you want that position to be fortified? I know, do you want Daniel Brunskill playing right guard? Do you want to have Nicholas Petit-Frere continuing to play right tackle? You don't want that. If you have an issue with the offensive line, which a lot of people do, and rightfully so, I think it's at least worth an attempt. That's all I'm saying. I think it's worth an attempt to see if Trey Smith, with his connection to the state, with his connection with Mike Borgonzi. Remember, Willie asked Mike Borgonzi about this when we spoke to him recently. Trey Smith, remember, there was a shooting at the Kansas City Super Bowl parade. Trey Smith comforted Mike Borgonzi's son, Joey, during that parade when the shots were being fired. You have to know that Mike Borgonzi has a soft spot in his heart for Trey Smith. I mean, it's about obviously about the play on the field as well. One texter says 0 in terms of having zero interest in Trey Smith. Sign Dylan Radins for $5 million.
See, this is this is what I'm talking about right here. I guess I thought that we've talked about the offensive line and the importance of the offensive line so much. I thought that I didn't think we would get any pushback like this. I can understand, don't draft a guard, with the 5th pick or the 7th pick or the 10th pick. Don't draft. I get that. I understand that, fans, for saying that. But if you got an opportunity to sign the best right guard in free agency that's still 25 years old, why not do it? You're not giving up any assets. You're paying top dollar for a guy that is proven, and he's 25 years old. I can see if Trey Smith was 33, 34, 35, then and people still consider him, a top guard, but he's not. He's more on the end of retirement than not. I can understand that. But I am truly surprised, Adam, that people are saying no, like after what they've seen over the last 4 years, 3 years. And we're telling you, based upon, what the football world is saying, that Trey Smith is a damn good player. And it would be an asset for you to get him. But they're like, nah, sign Dylan Radins back?
Maybe listen
Do you
to
want
Dylan
Radins? Do you want Dylan Radins protecting Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders? Or do you want to get them, if the Titans so choose to draft them with the number 1 overall pick, would you like to protect them with one of the best linemen on the market, the best lineman on the market? Isn't that what you want? You want to protect a young quarterback. The offensive line has been god awful for years. So that I agree with you, Derek. This is not us saying they need to pay just ridiculous amounts of money for a 34-year-old offensive lineman. You hope that if you had the opportunity to sign Trey Smith, he becomes your right guard for the next several years, and you don't have to worry about that position for a decade. So it is funny. I do agree with you that Titans fan, this is not isolated to Titans fans. This is sports fans in general. Dylan Radins. Would you rather? I mean, Dylan Radins for $5 million.
And listen, Adam, Dylan Radins he's a solid player.
Yes,
he deserves to. He earned his right to
absolutely
be in the NFL, and he will be in the NFL moving forward. But man, I don't, Adam, I don't know.
Matthew in Nashville says the people who are going to text and call in about not wanting Trey Smith are just anti-Tennessee fans that don't want to see Vols on the Titans.
I guess that I believe you in a sense a little bit with that, because it's like, man, you're not giving up any assets, meaning your draft. You're not drafting Trey Smith.
The cap isn't real in the NFL. There's
The
no
cap
hard
isn't
cap
real.
in the NFL.
You're not drafting Trey Smith number 1 overall. You are signing a young, up and come. Who's proven he's not even up again. He's proven that he's one of the best guards in the National Football League. And and some of you are saying no to that. Pay Dylan ratings or just no to that. Wow.
Alex,
you would have thought we won. You would have thought we won a Super Bowl or something.
Alex from Montreal says the Titans aren't deep enough to take or pay luxury players build through the draft. Last year's free agency got them 3 wins. On the other side, another texter said, yes, you sign them. Spend money on the line now, then draft production. Do not want to see this again. If we had a line, we would still have Henry. Wes and Hermitage says Dylan Radins is a backup, not a starter.
Exactly.
So there are a wide range of opinions. Let's see what Brent has to say. Brent is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. Brent, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yeah, well, I don't know what these other guys what they've been smoking or something, but I'm telling you, if we could get this guy to solidify that right side, there is no question we should do it. Because like they say, all it is money. And in that world, there's a lot of cash to be thrown around. So anyway, I agree with you guys 100%. But I have one question. We still don't have the right tackle thing solved. So how do you propose to fix that? And then I'll jump off the phone and listen to you guys.
Thanks, Brent.
Thank you.
That is a good question.
Yeah. That's a good question. And I'm with you. I'm right with you. How do you address that position? Do you address it later in the draft? And, 3rd round, 4th round? Can you, move around off that 1st round pick and accumulate some more picks in this year's draft? And possibly, if you can get another 2nd round pick, do you draft a tackle in the 2nd round if you have 2 picks? So, I mean, there are several different ways they can go about trying to get a right tackle. I don't know which one is best, because I don't know the market in regards to tackles that are going to be free agents and tackles that are rookies or that are going to be in this year's draft. So there's only 2 ways you can do this. And I don't suggest you do it with the people you got on your team right now.
Let's answer this question from Joey from Bellevue quickly. He says, if the Chiefs tag Smith and the Vikings tag Darnold, there's no way the Titans have the draft picks available to trade for both. You have to pick one.
I'm picking Trey. Because again, I don't think now, okay. Now, if you're going to make Darnold your guy, like this is your franchise quarterback for the next 5 or 6 years, then okay, do it. The price may be a little steeper, but okay. But if that's not the case, then I'm taking Trey.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on, should the Titans pursue Trey Smith if he becomes available in free agency? If he's tagged, would you trade for Trey Smith? 615-737-1025. Willie Donick should join us on the other side. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Ask D. Mace coming up at 12:30. So if you've got questions for Derek, get them in now on our text line, 615-737-1025. You can also call closer to the start of 12:30 if you want to get in on the phone lines for Ask D-Mace. Willie is here. He is in Buffalo. Hello, Willie.
Hello, guys.
Willie.
Greetings from Buffalo. Can you hear Niagara Falls off in the distance? Can you hear it? Not quite. Maybe not from my room.
Let's catch Willie up here, Derek. In the
Yes.
previous segment, we were talking about Trey Smith, the guard from the Kansas City Chiefs. He needs a new contract. I know the Chiefs can franchise tag him. We were talking about the possibility of the Titans going after Trey Smith. Dan Graziano on ESPN.com predicts that Trey Smith will receive a 5-year contract worth $105 million with $65 million guaranteed, which would tie for first among guards in annual average value. And we've gotten some mixed responses. People not wanting the Titans to throw money at free agents after what happened last year in free agency. But a lot of people who say, look, the offensive line needs to get better. It's the key to the whole operation. Why not go after Trey Smith? What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, well, I'm going to say that, A, they're a long way from winning. And therefore, I'm going to start by saying I don't think it's good to put big money into free agency now. And they have said that. It's not just me saying that. Now, that being said, Trey Smith is 25 years old. I would also ask this question. Why would he be available at age 25 if he's an essential piece to a winning team? I know Kansas City every year has got to make tough choices. It's intriguing only because he's so young.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is Trey Smith, who is from Nashville, right?
West Tennessee. Jackson. He's from
University
Jackson.
School. Jackson. Yeah, my fault. I don't know why I thought Nashville, but didn't he have some pretty significant health issues, or am I thinking of a different guy? I might be thinking of a different guy. I'm going back. I'm getting guys confused, offensive linemen confused, because the guy I'm thinking about was
It was a big tackle.
He might have had a
Nashville.
pulmonary embolism, a blood
I
clot.
think it's a different guy.
a blood
The
clot
blood
disorder?
clot stuff. Was
Yes.
that this Trey Smith, or am I?
Or is that a
am I
different Trey
thinking-
Smith? Too many Trey
I
Smiths.
admit I'm on the verge of having another birthday, and I might have more spaciness in my brain now. But either way, I don't think it's a fit right now. I'd rather try to draft and develop the next guy unless I can get a bargain. I feel like guys like him would be overpaid. And again, I would go back to the first question. Why would Kansas City let him go? If that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, but I wouldn't look so much in regards to that, because every team I think has to make difficult situations. Baltimore made some difficult situations last year with their offensive line, where they had to, not sign back 2 of their premier guys, and they chose to move on and insert some other guys in there. So it just depends on, because we see teams that are consistent winners, especially teams like Kansas City, or you look at teams like New England. They don't mind moving on from guys. Now, what may be difficult with this one, like you said, William, we've pointed out, he's only 25 years old. So, if they're looking to move away from at the age of 25, then either they believe that they have someone behind him that can just get the job done at a much lesser price, or they just felt like, listen, we don't even want to get into this, this negotiation sort of thing. We'll assign them to a franchise tag, and then we'll let the bidding starts to begin. But outside of that, we're not going to do anything with them. So you have teams that it just depending on what Kansas City is thinking. But I'm with you, Willie. The likelihood of them letting them go is slim. because he's so young and he just would be finishing his rookie contract.
By the way, Willie, multiple texters have pointed out that you are correct. That was the Trey Smith that we're discussing.
Blood clots.
Who had the
blood
clot issues.
clots. And it was pretty serious, and that's what dropped him to the sixth round. I'm trying to have it all come back to my mind now. He played at Tennessee.
And maybe they think maybe they think, hey, listen, we don't want to chance it no further than what we have. And, they allow him to walk in free agency. I don't know.
There is another development at the Senior Bowl that I found to be interesting. Jackson Dart, the quarterback from Ole Miss, apparently showed out at the Senior Bowl. And Charles Robinson was on Robbie and Rex Road yesterday talking about Jackson Dart and where he might fall in the quarterback pecking order. I thought it was interesting. This was Charles Robinson on Robbie and Rex Road yesterday.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Dart's got the potential for it. And I thought it before the Senior Bowl started because I knew, okay, Milroe and Dart, these are two guys that when you start to talk to personnel people and you're like, okay, let's get past Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Is there anybody else that, is there any ability for quarterbacks to potentially move themselves in the process? And Milroe and Dart were the two guys that immediately had, guys that were like, yeah, look, when the process started last year, we didn't think there were going to be six quarterbacks that were going to get, taken in the first, 12 picks. And no one would have believed that when the process started last year. We were like, we started talking, we're like, oh, there's going to be 5 first-round quarterbacks. And it was like, oh, there could be 6. No one thought these guys are all going to go in the top 12 picks. But because of the need, and how quarterback works in this league, they always get pushed if they have talent to the top of the draft board. And I think this is going to be that case where two things. I mean, number one, we could see it could be different with Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Maybe it won't go exactly the way we think. I mean, maybe one of these guys goes high, another one maybe is Shedeur or Cam. I mean, we haven't really seen it unfold yet. One of these guys, quote unquote, slides a little bit. So maybe he's not a top 2 or 3 pick. Maybe he's a top 10 pick, but he goes a little further down than we thought. But in that same vein, we could potentially see, Milroe. Milroe has a great week. From a running standpoint, from a tool standpoint, I mean, there's an argument to be made like, hey, compare him to Anthony Richardson. And, Anthony Richardson gets pushed up the board. Why wouldn't Milroe?
That was Charles Robinson on Robbie and Rex Road yesterday. He mentions Jalen Milroe in that clip, but I want to focus on Jackson Dart. He's been shooting up the big boards based on his performance at the Senior Bowl. And my question, Willie, is not, should the Titans consider Jackson Dart? I don't think that's the question. I think the question is, how can the Titans take advantage of this quarterback situation? Since there are questions about Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, if Jackson Dart is getting some love from his performance in the Senior Bowl, how can the Titans play that to their advantage with potentially trading the number 1 pick?
My hope is that all of these quarterbacks move up. And I'll never forget Floyd Reese years and years ago. And I believe one example he used when he first joined our station, and he was on with George Plaster and I think the year was 20. I think it was the year that Jared Goff, and Adam, you might have to you can look up things quicker than I can, but the Titans ended up trading the first pick.
2016.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Carson Wentz was the second pick in that draft, right?
Yes.
Okay. So months before the draft, I think if I remember correctly, there was a lot of talk of there are no quarterbacks in this draft. There's none. You don't want to. And if you want a quarterback, this is not the year. And Floyd said to me, and he said it on the air many times, he goes, they always move up. The quarterbacks will always move up. I'm like, who is Carson Wentz? I've never heard of him. He played for who? I've never seen the guy play. He's going to move up. You watch. And they were the first 2 picks in the draft. I watch Jackson Dart quite a bit this year. I see an offensive scheme. What do I know? I'm a college football watcher. I don't have a keen eye of a scout. I also saw Jackson Dart at his worst. It cost them a playoff game down in Gainesville. He just played a terrible game.
Whew.
So if he moves up, but I thought the same thing about J.J. McCarthy. I thought he was just decent. They won a national championship. He was good, gritty. I did not look at him and say, that's an NFL first-round quarterback right there. So you never know. But getting to your question, Adam, the more that these quarterbacks move up, the better leverage I think the Titans have to move down where they want to go and then get the guy they want. Maybe it's a quarterback, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's the premier guy that slides down a few notches that's still there because others can't resist trying to take the next quarterback. They feel like they've got to have him.
Yeah, and listen, I've seen Jackson Dart play a few times. Most notable, the game that you were talking about, where he threw an interception, got overturned, then came back the very next play and threw another interception.
Yes,
he threw 3 interceptions, I think, in that game, 3 or 4. It wasn't a good game for him, but they still had an opportunity. With all of that, they had an opportunity to win the game. Listen, I like Jackson Dart. But is he what the Titans need at this moment? Do they have enough time to watch a quarterback develop? Because you're going to take Jackson Dart. And listen, he may turn out to be Bo Nix. He may turn out to be, some of these other quarterbacks, Michael Penix, who end up being a starter at the end of the season for Atlanta. He may turn out to be one of those guys. But I don't think you're afforded the luxury to try to find out if you're drafting a guy that many don't predict to be drafted in the first round. Now, if you draft him if you draft him late in the second, if you get another second round or draft him in the third, then okay. Right now, I don't think you have a third round pick. But if you can get a third, then okay, great. But making him, a priority in regards to, okay, we need a quarterback, so we're going to move down, not take Cam or Shedeur, but we're going to take Jackson Dart with the, say, 17th or 18th pick. I don't think that would be wise.
I just have a problem with the fact that he spells his name with an X. That's all I'm saying. David tells me we have another clip from Charles Robinson about Jackson Dart. Here's Charles Robinson on Robbie and Rexrod.
Quickly get a follow-up on Jackson Dart. Are you suggesting that he's so popular that he could be Bo Nix and sneak into the first round all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think Dart's got the potential for it. And I thought it before the Senior Bowl started because I knew okay, Milroe and Dart, these are 2 guys that when you start to talk to personnel people and you're like, okay,
That was actually the same clip we just played. That's my bad, everybody.
But no,
but we're emphasizing the fact that
that's on me. That's on me. I'll take the blame. I take the blame.
But here's the thing. With Bo Nix, the only way Denver does it is that because of Sean Payton.
Right.
Because Sean Payton knows that his job is not in jeopardy whatsoever. So I can go out and I can evaluate Jackson Dart, and I can come back to everybody and say, hey, listen, this is the guy that I want. I think I can develop this guy. If it doesn't work, if it doesn't work the first year, say if he's not showing signs the first year, they're not going to go away from Payton. They're not. They're going to give him time to develop the quarterback. Does Brian Callahan have that time? No, he doesn't. I'm going to answer the question for you. So whereas Jackson Dart may or has the potential to be a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix, but does Brian Callahan have the time to develop him into one of those guys if he doesn't pop off like Bo Nix has his first year or Michael Penix did in the games that he played?
It's a good question, but I'm with Willie. The more quarterbacks that can get into this conversation, that get teams wanting to move up the draft board, the better position the Titans are in to strike. So I'm all for inflating Jackson Dart's tires. Go for it, man.
Inflate away, huh?
Yeah.
but like
Anybody
you said,
else? Who else we got out there? Let's
Jalen
get him up there.
Milrow,
Yeah,
Kyle
get him up there.
McCord.
but we know Willie. Just think about this, Willie. This time last year. This time, I'm not talking about as the draft was like 2 weeks away or 3 weeks away or a month away. At this time, we wasn't talking about all these Bo Nixes and all those other guys.
Yeah,
we were not.
JJ McCarthy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about those guys. We were talking about the headliners, the two at top, 2 or 3 at top, or 2 at top.
Yep.
We weren't talking about nobody else. But then, as they had more time to watch these guys, and maybe some guys wanted to sort of position themselves, meaning teams. You know, if I got a second pick in the draft or third pick in the draft, maybe I hype this guy up so I can get more if I want to trade out. So just because we only have 2 right now doesn't mean come, late February or March, there's not going to be 3 or 4 guys added. Well, at least 3 guys added to the mix.
Willie, before you came on, we were talking about the wide receiver position, the draft capital that the Titans have spent at the receiver position, which isn't much. The fact that they drafted Treylon Burks in the first round a couple of years ago skews that in terms of the Jimmy Johnson draft pick value chart. I was listening to Paul Kaharski's podcast yesterday, which I found to be interesting. But we were talking about the Titans' need for a young receiver. Right now, under contract, they have Calvin Ridley and Treylon Burks. Nick Westbrook-Akine still needs a contract. Tyler Boyd is a free agent. If they were to draft Travis Hunter number 1 overall, it could solve that issue. Other than that, they're not putting themselves in a position, most likely, to take one of the other top receivers in the draft. But it developed into a conversation about why the Titans have had an issue throughout their history of drafting and developing top flight wide receivers. It's reminiscent about the conversations we have about the Predators at the forward position. So I'm curious for your opinion on the state of the Titans wide receiver group and what you think they should do to address it this offseason.
I think in a short answer, I would say this is why they need to trade down, because they have a laundry list of needs at some of the most essential positions in football. Quarterback, dynamic wide receiver, which is such a big game changer these days, and edge rusher and right tackle, right? They don't have enough picks in the first round to go get and address all of those. So that's my answer to that, is this is why they need to trade down and get more picks. That will allow them to go grocery shopping and actually have a chance to fill some of these spots. Why has it not been better over the years? That's a great mystery. We're going back 25 years of this being a narrative, and I don't know if I can explain it completely, but there's no doubt they need to bolster the wide receiver position, and I would like to see them address it through the draft. But when you're missing, you don't have a 3rd round pick right now. You don't have one, and they've got an extra 5th, maybe. I guess DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think he's played the 2/3 of the.
No, they're
snaps.
not going to get the
They're not going to
conditional.
move up.
They're not getting the conditional pick.
Yeah, I wish they would have negotiated better on that. That never had a chance, I don't think. But if they have an extra 5th or extra 6th, whatever it is, it's hard to find. You might find a good one there, but it's going to be difficult. We saw what you got in Calvin Ridley. They spent premium dollars overpaying for a guy who's a good wide receiver, but not a number 1 wide receiver.
Wes in Hermitage on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com says, in my opinion, and I've been saying this for weeks, Jackson Dart will have the most success in the NFL than any other quarterback in this draft, and he's willing to die on that hill. That doesn't mean I want to take him number 1, but I truly think the Titans can trade back, get some picks, get Abdul Carter, and Dart, and be in a good spot. Dart has more potential in the NFL than any other quarterback coming out this year. Wes from Hermitage. Big Jackson Dart guy.
Yeah, I mean, not to say he has the most potential than any of these guys, I don't know. I'm not sure. But again, listen, as this process continues, teams, sports journalists, people are going to convince themselves that 1, 2, maybe even 3 guys are worthy of a first round pick. They're going to watch the pro days. They're going to watch all these throws. They're going to go back and they're going to watch more tape. They're going to talk to a few more people, and they're going to decide, okay, these are 3 more guys that need to be added to the list of guys that can potentially be drafted in the first round outside of Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. So, whether you believe Jackson Dart is a guy that the Titans could draft potentially and he be their quarterback or not, I think eventually this will change. The narrative will change. Right now it's only 2, but I guarantee you the narrative will change come draft day or even before that.
615-737-1025. It is Friday. It is almost 12:30, which means it's time for Ask D-Mace. Call us, text us, 615-737-1025. If you've never asked a question of a Hall of Famer, now is your chance to talk to future Tennessee Sports Hall of Famer Derek Mason. We'll do that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingy, 1025-1063. The Game.
Ooh, yeah.
He played 15 years in the NFL.
Quick throw.
He had over 12,000 receiving yards.
Midfield, and there he goes. 80 yards for the touchdown.
And now you can ask him anything. Have a question about football or life? Now's your time to ask D-Mace.
We'll welcome you in.
Now,
D-Mace.
on 102.5 and 106.3, The Game and the Game Nashville app.
D-Mace, Finken, the Donick, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. It is time to ask D-Mace. Get your calls and your texts in now at 615-737-1025. Mostly nothing is off limits. I am screening these, however, so keep it PG. But anything you want to ask,
We
Derek,
got sensitive ears here.
Indeed we do. So anything you want to know from the mouth of Derek Mason, you can do that now at 615-737-1025. Let's start on our text line with Robert in Spring Hill. His question for you, Derek, is when you are drafting later in the rounds, is it okay to draft a guy that isn't a position that you might not need, but is a guy that you want to have in your locker room? For example, I really love the running back from Arizona State, Cam Skattebo, and think he would be an amazing pick. It actually says amazing pig, but I know he meant amazing pick. Thinks he would be an amazing pick in the 4th or 5th round if he's there. So the question from Robert is it okay to draft a guy that isn't a position of need later in rounds because he would be a good locker room guy?
I think teams do it all the time in the later rounds, drafting a guy not necessarily because they need that guy at that specific position, but because maybe, we can play another, special team for him. And he can be depth. He can be a depth piece that they ultimately, and then, after talking with, coaches and administrators and whatnot, you find out that he's a good locker room guy. He was a leader in his locker room at his university. He was a captain, and he could be potentially one of those guys that takes on a leadership role in your locker room at one point. So teams do it all the time, but I don't think they necessarily like, I'm just going to get that guy because he is a good locker room guy. I think that's that's sort of one of those added attributes to a guy. But teams do it all the time. They don't necessarily draft guys because they need them right now at that position.
I mean, that I'm a fan
rounds
of Cam Skattebo because he vomited profusely. Keyword profusely.
Adam loves when guys vomit.
Puke and rally, my friend.
Hey, if you ain't puking and rallying, you ain't doing it, man. You ain't doing it.
You're not the guy for us.
Exactly.
Eric is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. First with a dad joke, then with a question for Derek. Eric, go ahead.
Hey, guys, first of all, before I get to my dad joke and then the question for D-Mace, first of all, guys, wish me luck. Earlier today, I was with my counselor from the Tennessee Department of Human Services trying to find a part-time job, and it's tough trying to find a job that's going to fit the specific schedule that you want because I'm collecting disability, and I got to be careful because if I make too much money and I lose my disability, then I definitely don't want to do that. So it's painstaking, but it's hard because most of the people either want you full-time, they want you to work the hours that you don't want to work, or they're just not hiring right now. So it could take a while, guys, but just wish me luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Okay, guys, my dad joke here is this. This is the 3rd week in a row. This is the dad joke that I came up with on my own that I made up, and I thought of this a little while ago. So here goes, D-Mace. What do you get when you cross a volcano with an earthquake?
Shaky lava.
Well, it's close. It's close. Not quite. Shake and bake.
Okay, I like that one.
Do we have a rim shot for Eric by chance?
Not bad.
That's not bad. I like that one.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, I got one.
D-Mace,
I got one for you, Eric.
Okay.
This is my dad joke. I've got to counter Eric. Eric is stealing the show.
Okay.
You ready, D-Mace? Let's
Go
see
ahead.
who can make D-Mace laugh better. My friend just had an interview to become a mailman. Kenny the mailman, if you're listening. I wish him luck and told him to keep me posted.
I think Willie wins this round, Derek.
That's a good one. That's a good one, Willie.
I like that one, Willie.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you this question, D-Mace,
Yes.
a week early. This is a 2-part question. This concerns the Super Bowl because I figured somebody may eventually ask you this question, whether it's today or probably next Friday. Are you going to
or hosting the Super Bowl party? That's the first part of the question. And the second part of the question is, what is your favorite or go-to food that you love the Super Bowl party? Just the one food you love to have. Are you going to, or are you hosting Super Bowl party, one or the other? And what is your go-to food, favorite food at the Super Bowl party? Guys, I'll get off. Y'all have a great weekend. Take care, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks for the call, Eric.
Thanks for the call, Eric. I can't tell you the last time I went to a Super Bowl party. I've never.
We're
thrown
bringing
a
the
Super
party
Bowl
to you this year, Derek. We're bringing the party to you.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm weird when it comes to stuff like that. Not to say that I haven't been to a Super Bowl party before, because I have. But I'm just weird about stuff like that, because when I'm watching a game, I like to watch it in peace. I don't like a lot of noise. I don't like a lot of questions being asked. I don't like any of that. I just like to sit in peace. Like, if I'm, if a few friends are over, great, but don't be asking a lot of questions. But when it's a lot of people, a lot of moving around, a lot of other stuff, no, I just want to watch the football game, especially if it's at my place. I just want to watch the football game. So I'm not big on football parties. I mean, people love them. They're great, but I'm not big on them. Now, as far as a food, I mean, I hadn't been in many, so I guess, as long as you had some chips and dip, I'm good. But I know that is that
the buffalo chicken dip. That's probably the best one.
I guess that would be, yeah.
That
Chips
works.
and dip it's good for me.
I'm a nacho man myself.
I just got to get there first. I want my own portion of chip and dip, because listen, I love everybody, but one thing,
Don't be double dipping at D-Maze's house.
I do not like when the food is just all sitting out and it's just people just grab it and just, no. I got to be the first person that get my chips and get my dip. After that, I'm not going back.
Willie, are you a double dipper?
I was just thinking Seinfeld.
That's exactly where I was going with this, of course.
You dip the chip, you took a bite, and you dipped it again.
Oh, no. Oh,
double
man.
dipping.
A classic Seinfeld bit.
Classic Seinfeld.
Joey
Yep.
from Gallatin is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. Joey, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Real quick, I got to say the Little Smokies are kind of one of my favorites. But I got a question for you, D-Maze. When I was pretty young, I guess elementary school, do you remember the Tennessee Titans camp at Lipscomb University?
Yes.
Because that was the first time ever really meeting like professional players. I remember Blaine Bishop, you were there, and I went to the lobby one day, and I was real short, and there's this really big group of people, all the kids that were there, gathered around a chair, and all I could see was a shiny bald head. And I remember I had a lineman that befriended me, and he was real tall. He picked me up, put me on his shoulders, and I could see you clear there. And I remember that memory of just being excited to see you, and like I watched you play, and that was a big day for me, because I remember I met Eddie George as well, and I told my dad that I almost beat Eddie George in a race because he almost let me win, but no, that's a big memory of mine that I always go back to see if you remembered all that.
Yes, I did. Blaine
Thanks,
and
Joey.
Thank you, Joey. The first year, I think it was Randall Godfrey and I. And then, or was it Blaine? It was Blaine and I first. We did it for a while, and then Blaine ended up leaving. I think that's when he went to Philly. And then Randall Godfrey and I did it a year. So yeah, I remember that. I've had several people that point to that camp that we ran, and I forget which agency helped us with it. But that come up to me and say, yeah, that's the first time I met you and Blaine, or you and Randall Godfrey, or some other players are out there. And now these people are grown individuals. So it's good to hear when people, as they start to get older, that's one of their fondest memories. So
let me just make sure I heard this. So Joey said one of the memories he remembers is seeing your bald head.
Yeah, my bald head. Yeah.
So you could just boil this conversation down to why you bald. That was basically Joey.
Exactly.
That was basically Joey's call. I did see somebody on the text line, by the way, yesterday, because I had the tab open from closing my computer at the end of our show, and then when I opened my computer again, it was during Jared's show, and somebody referred to us as the three eggheads because we're all bald.
Hey, I'll take it.
Why you
take it.
bald? Why you stupid? That's all I would say. 615-737-1025. We've got some more calls and text to get to. We'll continue Ask D Mace coming up next. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game.
All right, let's talk Lee Company, proud sponsor of our Nashville Predators coverage. Nashville in Buffalo tonight. That's where I am. They'll take on the Sabres. UC Saros, under the weather, did not skate this morning. It'll be Justus Anonen who starts tonight, and we will go from there. Our coverage begins at 5 o'clock here on 102.5 The Game, and it'll be brought to you by Lee Company. Lee Company's got you covered in your household. They've been in business since 1944. Got a maintenance problem? You know, I always talk about the heating, the cooling, the plumbing, the air conditioning. But if you've got some issues with maintenance generally, a fence, a door, windows, Lee Company has that home improvement and maintenance department. So they can come out there and fix whatever problem you got. And that goes for your business as well. 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. Always keep that phone number handy. 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. Lee Company, proud sponsor of our Nashville Predators coverage, in business since 1944.
Why you bald? Why you asking a dumb question like that? Why you bald? Why you ugly?
I'm going to petition Chase that we rename our show from DVD to Why You Bald, featuring Derek Mason,
The Bald
Willie
Guys.
Donick, and Adam Vingan.
WYB.
By
why
the way,
you bald?
I think it's an important distinction. I am balding. I am not bald. I do shave my head, but I am not bald. I am balding. I think the ing is very important in this conversation. Let's get back to Ask D-Mace. Adam is in Portland on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Adam, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Well, that's also an episode of Seinfeld where Elaine dates the balding guy who shaves his head intentionally when he doesn't have to, when it starts to grow back if you're seated. Like the whole episode. It's a great episode. I don't know if Willie knows that. Willie knows all my Seinfeld episodes.
Willie, do you recall
Remember
this
when
episode?
George, I don't, but I remember
the swimmer.
when George Costanza gets the toupee. Remember that one? And he said, I am back in the game now. I am in the game.
That's what I said. He looks exactly like Mike Borgonzi. That's a different episode, but that's who Mike Borgonzi looks like, is that version of George. So here's my question for you, D-Mace. This is an impossible question, all right?
Okay.
If you can, all right, I'm giving you all the power to fix the Titans, all right? But you could only draft one offense, defense, and special teams player from the 99 team and put it on this team and make them competitive. I'll see if you could do it.
Say
Thanks for
that
the call,
if
Adam.
drafting one guy from the 99 team.
Right. One offensive player, one defensive
defensive
player,
player.
and one special teamer.
From the 99 team. The no-brainer is Steve. Steve or B-Hop. Those are two guys I'm taking. Steve or B-Hop on offense. Defense, that 99 team. Javon. I would start with Javon and probably end with Blaine. Javon and Blaine. From that's who I would draft offensively and defensively on that team.
Well, you have to choose one.
Okay, so I would draft Steve first,
Mm-hmm.
and I would draft Javon.
Okay. And one special teamer.
One special teamer. Outside, I would draft myself, but I don't want to
That's
do
the
that.
answer we're looking for.
Yeah, I would draft myself.
You're a Tennessee Sports Hall of Famer now.
Yes, I would draft myself, but I'm looking at. I would draft Craig. Was Hendrick on that team? No, he came the year after. He wasn't on that special. He wasn't on that team, Willie, on that 99 team. He came, I think, a year or two after.
Who?
Craig Hendrick. Was it a year or two after?
He was there at 99. He was
there.
there.
So our special teams would be Craig. I would draft Craig on the special teams.
Okay. There you go, Adam.
Yeah, Hendrick came in, I think, as a Tennessee Oiler because he was a big free agent pickup. Was one of the first guys, and they said, "Hey, he can kick field goals too." Like there were occasional times where he took the long field goal.
Mm-hmm.
So he came in. I think the year you guys played at Vanderbilt. I think that was his first year.
Yeah,
with the team.
Yeah, but outside myself is a no-brainer, but I'm not putting myself in that equation. So I would draft Craig, Steve, and Javon.
You're too humble for your own good, my friend. Daniel is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Daniel, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Jared Stillman, he always likes the two stories that he always likes to share numerous times. The right tackle story, and then the second story is little Jared Stillman, the Titans-Baltimore playoff game in 2000, and just, his disheartening, his sadness, and me and Jared are the exact same age. So picture.
Did we lose Daniel? We lost Daniel. Daniel, call back. We want to hear the end of that story. This is a no right tackle story zone. That story does not get told on our airwaves.
No, the right tackle story, no.
How many times do you think the actual little Jared Stillman, little Jackson, how many times do you think he's heard the right tackle story?
I'm sure he's heard it several times to put him to sleep. In mom's belly, he probably told the story 20 times. So much so mom probably put earbuds in her ear as he was telling the story. And then obviously his first words, the first story he heard was the right tackle story. Guarantee you.
Oh boy. Brian is on our phone. He's on our text line. Brian says, there's no denying, Derek, that Mahomes flops around to get calls. As a player from a generation where guys would get lit up. How do you feel about players and calls like this today?
Listen, I understand they got to protect the quarterback. But I think in the NFL, we'll look at this, I'm sure, in the offseason. But there has to be a point where, when you're sort of playing with the defenders or knowing how the rules are written, that you can sort of, do all you want to. And then as long as you get down at the very last second, if they hit you, it's deemed unnecessary roughness. I think the league has to look at that. But listen, as much as I may not like it as a player, I wouldn't do it. But he's taking advantage of the rules. If until somebody really smacks him, this is what's going to happen. I'm telling you, what's more than likely going to happen if the league don't change this. There's going to be a team that is up 3 touchdowns, and he's still playing, and he's doing all that stuff, and they're just going to say, forget it. They're going to take the 15-yard penalty, and that's going to be the end of that. It takes one good hit for you to stop messing around with defensive guys. So hopefully the league does sort of look at it in the offseason, because if they don't, I think that's what's going to ultimately end up happening.
Daniel is back on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. Daniel, let's hear that story.
Yes. So 14-year-old Daniel, Derek Mason, one of my favorite Titans of all time. Told my mom that Christmas I wanted, a Derek Mason jersey. And then what happens in 2005? Derek Mason goes to the Baltimore Ravens, and you want to talk about a 14-year-old that was so upset, displeasured to not only to lose him from losing him from the Titans, but going to the Baltimore Ravens. That was one of the most depressing moments as a Derek Mason and as a Titans fan, being a longtime Titans fan. So I just wanted to share that.
Daniel, what did you do with that jersey after Derek left?
I actually still have that jersey, and I still have that youth large jersey.
See, that's what
Thanks for the call, Daniel.
That wasn't. See, I wasn't in the era, Willie, when they burned jerseys when you went to another team. So maybe they would have burned my jersey too. But
we don't see, by the way, we don't see enough Derek Mason jerseys around here. I see plenty of other Titans jerseys.
The spec is not there, man. The spec is not there.
I see plenty of other Titans jerseys. I don't see enough Derek Mason jerseys. What's up with that?
The spec is not
I digress.
there, man,
Please
continue.
The spec needs to be there.
Yeah, but no. No, I mean, that year, everybody understood it. And I think, Willie, you can attest to this because you were around. I think even going to that season, I think everyone knew that there were going to be, some big cuts on the Titans team, regardless of what happened, that upcoming season. I think many knew that there were going to be some cuts. I don't think they really understood how many in all of the big names, but I think people knew that, hey, our window, it was in a sense almost closing, and they needed to sort of redo some things because of the salary cap. So I knew it was coming, but I thought that they would allow, my representatives to redo the contract and I'd be able to stay. But it didn't happen that way. So it wasn't necessarily, to me, it wasn't a shock like, oh my goodness, they cut me. It was damn disappointing, yeah, but it never was a shock.
Quickly, John from Mount. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Willie. Then we'll
go ahead. I would only add, just at the time, I don't think that Floyd Reese was on the forefront. It was still a relatively new thing, the NFL salary cap, and I think he chose the boom or bust. He basically, I think, during the window while it was open, he double mortgaged the future. It doubled down, tripled down to try to keep the window open, and he knew that at some point he would have to pay the bill, and I think that was a big reason. I think they're in the last 20 years or so since then, I think GMs have done a better job. They have more tools. They've figured out better ways to avoid having to do that, where you're like, look, I can't hold out anymore. I've got to cut some guys. I think you don't see teams do that anymore. Is that fair to say? Not the players the caliber of you, Kevin Carter, and Samari Rolle, like he did on one day. That was unbelievable to use three lose 3 guys like that for nothing.
Yeah, I don't think you don't see that as much now as opposed to back then, because you're right. They figured out now how to sort of really manipulate the salary cap, and if they need to sign a guy, they'll sign him.
Quickly, John from Mount Juliet is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County. John, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that last story, the guy that grew up during the Philly Titan years, the Derek and Steve years, I did as well. I remember having a D-Mace jersey, that one of those ones you got from Walmart or Kmart when it existed. It was super easy to peel off the side team logos of those jerseys, and I was so upset when we lost Steve and Derek to the Ravens. I peeled the Titans logos off my D-Mace jersey and wore it to the Ravens game, his first game back, and cheered for the
Ravens. I love
Thanks for the call, John.
I love it.
That's dedication right there.
Exactly. Don't throw away the jersey. Just peel off the logo. I like it.
Not a Titans fan, a Derek Mason fan. And aren't we all Derek Mason fans at the end of the day? 615-737-1025. Coming up next. Someone went scorched earth on something on our airwaves yesterday, and I want to give Willie Donick the opportunity to respond. We'll do that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vinke, 1025-1063, The Game.
Scorched
Game Center update.
This is David James. The Nashville Predators are playing at the Buffalo Sabres tonight. The Predators are hoping to end their 2-game losing streak. Pre-game at 5 and puck drop at 6 here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. Vanderbilt women's basketball got a big 99-86 win at Florida last night. Michaela Blakes broke an NCAA freshman record by scoring 53 points. Vanderbilt will play Ole Miss at Memorial Gym at 2 p.m. on Sunday evening. We also have Indiana at Purdue on 94.9 The Fan at 6:45. This is your Game Center update, and here's your Fox 17 weather report.
I'm Fox 17 meteorologist Greg Bobus. Going into the afternoon, rain showers from this morning tapering off, but 1 or 2 lingering showers can't be ruled out for the afternoon through the early evening hours. High temperatures today stay very much like our morning. We'll be in the low to middle 60s.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com.
D. Mace, Finken, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Before we get to our next topic, Collins has called in. He has a Derek Mason story that he wants to share with all of us. Collins, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. So this was a really random thing that happened. My wife and myself like to go to concerts, and we were looking for Hall & Oates tickets, and I randomly got in a car to go do something. All I heard on the radio was be caller 5. I didn't know what I was winning. I was just caller 5, so I just called. Bam, Hall & Oates tickets. Couldn't believe it. I was like, man, this is great. This is amazing. So I when I went to come to get the tickets, I called beforehand. I said, hey, this is when y'all were giving tickets by hand. So I said, if I brought my D. Mace jersey up, you think he would sign it? You know, he's my favorite player. You know, I grew up, you know, during that era, and I brought the jersey up. He signed it, and I don't know if you remember this, D. Mace, but I sent you, I think, a dozen Pro Vs. I sent you some golf balls for swapping. It's been about 6 or 7 years ago, and it was awesome. I got the tickets. I got you to sign my jersey, and now it's in a frame. I don't even wear it now. You know, it sits in my closet in a frame, you know, where nobody can touch it. So, but anyways, that's my story.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Collins. Isn't that so nice? That's so heartwarming. Derek, you have left an indelible mark on our community. That's why you're a Tennessee Sports Hall of Famer.
I try to. As long as he didn't say, hey, man, I met you, you know, like when I was a little kid, then it makes me feel older and older and older.
All right. So let's get to this topic here. So yesterday on Stillman and Company, which you can hear coming up after our program at 2 o'clock, Jared Stillman went scorched earth on UC Saros. And I'm not going to replay it because you can listen to Jared yell for 3 hours today, not the normal 4, because the Predators have an earlier game tonight. But here are the bullet points as it relates to UC Saros. 1, he's not an elite goaltender because he's never won a playoff series. He has a save percentage of under 900, which means he stinks. And although the NHL's website says that UC Saros has exactly a 900 save percentage, so I guess he doesn't stink for right now, but that's just tongue in cheek. So he's never won a playoff series. He at least had a save percentage of under 900. He didn't do enough to prevent this team from losing so many games at the beginning of the season. If he's an elite goaltender, he should have stolen some of those games, and the Predators shouldn't be in the position that they're in. Those are the major points, and that the Predators are tied to this contract. Even if they wanted to get out of it, they can't. All of those things. The UC Saros conversation is something we've been having on our station this week. I've heard it on multiple different shows. But now that Willie is here, I wanted to give Willie the opportunity to respond to Jared's points. I really will let Willie take this any way he wants to. So, Willie, go right ahead.
Well, first of all, just know that Jared won't listen to anything I'm saying. Even if I make a great argument here, he won't change his mind. And so that always disappoints me when we have these discussions and we're reacting to something that he says. I do think that Jared tries to exaggerate and hyperbolize to make points. And to settle in on save percentage is a very shallow argument. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. The playoff thing, you can't do anything about that right now. We've been backwards and forwards on that. I'm not going to touch that one because that is a fact. They haven't won a playoff series. But we have argued that in the last 2 playoff series that he's played in, he's played very well. They haven't lost because of him. So let's remember that UC Saros. Okay, let me make this point before I go into Saros' evaluation this year. He hasn't been UC Saros like this year. He has been very average by his standards, below his expectations for himself, below the expectations his team has for him. That being said, let's get into the save percentage thing, and let's get into the hasn't stolen enough games. First of all, his goal save above expectation for the season, and this is via Sport Logic, which I believe is the best thing to look at when it comes to this. He ranks 23rd out of 90 goalies with just under 7 goal save above expectation. So again, he's way better than the average goalie, even though we expect a lot from him. Because why? He's elite because he's finished in the top 6 of the Vezina Trophy voting for the last 4 consecutive years, 4 straight years. So that's elite. This year, it's not elite. He probably is not going to finish in the top 6 or anywhere close to it the way he's going, but there's still a lot of hockey to be played. But that being said, he's still 23rd out of 90 in goal save above expectation. Now, why is that? The team defense of the Predators is a weakness this year. They rank 24th out of 32 teams in the amount of goals that they are expected to give up every game. And I don't expect everybody listening to me to know what expected goals against is, but just in a nutshell, the amount of heat that he takes is a lot more than a lot of elite teams. They rank 24th out of 32. They're in the bottom 8 for most scoring chances, expected goals allowed per game. So that being said, his job is made a lot tougher. So let's now get to he doesn't elevate them. He's got the second worst goal support in the NHL. So not only are they not a great defensive team, they have also, for a large portion of the season, the Predators scored the fewest goals per game in the NHL. And UC Saros has the second worst goal support in the league, 2.28 goals per game in his starts. So his margin for error is razor thin. So I don't care how elite you are, and I'm not arguing that he's played elite, not even close to it. But his numbers look worse than they probably should, because not only is his team not defending well in front of him, they're not scoring to bail themselves out in enough of the games. And here's the example. The other night against Vancouver, UC Saros allowed 2 goals, and they lost. They have 10 games where Saros this year has allowed 2 goals or less in regulation and lost. I don't have a ranking for that. Adam, I don't know if you found anything on that.
I didn't.
But that's got to be the highest in the league or close to it. So I'm not saying he's had a good year. I'm not saying anything close to that. He's been, in my mind, a little better than the average goalie in the league, and that's lower than his expectation level. But to say that he stinks or whatever, I think is very, very exaggerated. I'm also not worried about the long term. And let me say one more thing about the save percentage.
Sure.
Yes, his save percentage is exactly 90 right now. That doesn't sound great. That's UC Saros like. But remember that the NHL average, the average NHL save percentage is 901. And I think as we've learned more and more about the game, not everything is tied up in the save percentage. For example, Pekka Rinne, 2015, 2016. That was a pretty good Predators team that won a round in the playoffs and lost in Game 7 of the second round. His save percentage that year was 908. That was well below the league average save percentage that year, which was 915. So by that token, Jared would say Rinne stunk that year. It was not a good Pekka Rinne season. But there is some ebb and flow, even to the best goaltenders, year in and year out. For example, UC Saros last year had a 906 save percentage. Not great by his standards year by year, but better than the league average, which was 903. So we have to take into account that it's harder and harder each year to have a higher save percentage. There's a reason for that I won't get into. And my final point will be, Jared is a big Braves fan. Let's take some of the pillars of the Braves year after year, because UC Saros is going to be the goalie for the Predators for a long time. So people are worried about the contract and things like that. Tom Glavine, year in and year out, great, right? You can pick out years where he was not good or not nearly as good as you would expect him to be. Let's take 1999. The Braves made the World Series. He had an ERA of 4.12. Not a Tom Glavine kind of year. The next year, his ERA was back down to 3.40. He won 21 games. And the year after that, 3.57. He had a bounce back. There was a dip, though. John Smoltz, 1994, 6-10 with a 4.14 ERA. So did that mean John Smoltz was on the verge of collapse? He's going to decline? No. He bounced back the next year. They won the World Series. 1995, 3.18 ERA. And then the following year, 96, 2.94. He won the Cy Young. UC Saros is a good bet over the long haul. I'm not worried about him. He's in a dip right now. The next couple months, the numbers could look a lot better. Maybe they'll be worse. I'm not sure. But my money is on him to get it done over the long haul. And we can talk about the contract a little bit later if you want to, Adam.
So here's one thing I do want to point out. And I know that I'm going to get a text because I'm going to call him out on the air. So Jared's point, one of his points, is that if you have a sub 900 save percentage, you stink. Jared worships at the altar of Boston sports radio. He loves Boston sports radio. He worked in that region. It's played a major part in the radio host that Jared Stillman is today. So he's in tune with what's going on in Boston. I texted him this morning. I said, does Jeremy Swayman stink? Jeremy Swayman, by the way, who makes more money than UC Saros, $8.25 million.
And will for the next 8 years.
Because he has a worse save percentage. I've asked him that question this morning. I followed it up. Never answered. I asked him twice. Does Jeremy Swayman stink? Didn't hear a peep. So I know I'm going to get a text right now because Jared is probably listening and I'm calling him out on the air. So I would love to know if Jared thinks Jeremy Swayman stinks. So I hear all of your points, Willie. And I mean, I can see it in both. I can see it from both perspectives. I agree that it's not a great look that UC Saros has not won a playoff series as the starting goalie of the Nashville Predators in 3 tries. Because remember, he didn't play in the Colorado series. He was injured. So you're referring to the Arizona series in the qualifying round in 2020, the first round against the Hurricanes in 2021, and the first round against the Canucks in 2024. In 2 of those 3 series, I wouldn't say he was the issue. He allowed 12 goals over 6 games against the Canucks last season. The Predators scored 12 goals in 6 games, if I'm not mistaken. But I understand that if you want to be considered the best of the best, you've got to win playoff games. And that's probably not going to happen for UC Saros this season. There's also no denying, as you are laying out, that he has been below average over the past few months. I laid out those numbers earlier
Right, but
this
that's
week.
not that's. But we're not. We're talking about to the season as a whole. We can always pick out a bad month. The best goalies are going to have a bad month here and there. So we're picking on him right now when he's been at his lowest level. Is that fair? Like,
Yeah,
and that's
I mean,
when these
it's
discussions come up.
look
Before that, we can talk about how good he was. That was what we talked about a lot earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was on Monday that when he was playing his best hockey of the season. All of these factors that I was talking about, the poor defense in front of him and no goal support, that they weren't winning those games, but he was elevating them a lot during that time. But they were not able to take advantage of his best play.
Right.
His numbers reflect the struggles of the team, a team that has had nobody's had a good year. So we could go down and every day name a different Predator and tell you why he stinks or whatever because he's not playing as well as he was last year or during his average career year.
No, absolutely. And Derek knows this
Mm-hmm.
as well. You mentioned pitchers, Braves pitchers, Willie. We know we talk about this way with quarterbacks, and we include goalies in this as well, that they are isolated. They suffer the wins and losses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when a goalie, a quarterback, a pitcher has a poor win-loss record, it reflects poorly on all of them. But I am not as concerned about this as other people are. Now, if this struggle continues into next season, I will certainly change my mind. But I have not hit the panic button yet. Like, it has not been a good season. Has not been a UC Saros caliber season overall, Derek. But I am not slamming the panic button yet. If we get into next season and this continues, I may reconsider.
Yeah, and listen, this is what happens, and it's understandable. When you sign a big contract, then there's this perception that, hey, listen, now that you've signed this contract, and I know UC's contract doesn't kick in until next season, but the fact that you've signed this huge contract, no one wants to see a dip. No one wants to see struggle. Everyone just assume and anticipate and want that, oh, UC is going to continue to play. He's never going to have a dip. He's going to continue to get better. And ultimately, he'll win the Vezina and everything else, and they'll win the championship. The contract sort of lends itself to that type of scrutiny. And I understand. But take away the contract. Who has UC Saros been? Just strip away the contract. Who has UC Saros been? Yes, he started off slow at times. Yes. But more times than not, UC has been the reason they've won a lot of games. And I get it. It's not in the playoffs. And yes, he's going to have to prove that. But he's been more of a reason that they won games than they've not. I understand being disappointed in him this season, but to go scorched earth, to come at him as if he's never like shown you that he's that guy, I think because of the contract, that's what comes with it. In a sense, is it fair? No, it's not fair. But you would almost expect eventually someone would go off because the play hasn't been to the standard that UC has set for himself.
615-737-1025. If you've got thoughts on the UC Saros conundrum, we'll call it. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
Cash in your pocket fast. Did he call you back? I'm surprised he ain't texted you back. Oh, he must be busy with the kid.
Oh man.
I don't even know what we're watching over here.
I never know. I was in here, like it was just Nick in here, and I just see Days of Our Lives. I'm just like, what are we watching in the studio? What is going on? Soap operas and stuff.
Yeah, that's what we're watching.
Go watch your episodes.
That's with Joe and them. Big Joe and them always have it on something outside of sports.
Exactly. And I'm just like, why? I get why sometimes,
Yeah.
but like,
But man, like Days of Our Lives, all that stuff.
Like,
okay.
Like, why do you want to watch old late shows? I only watch those when if I was sick and I was my grandma.
Exactly.
When was I ever watched that?
Freshly revamped dishes that bring the farm straight to your fork. Perfect for a leisurely breakfast or a hearty lunch. We're open every day, ready to treat you to a meal that feels like home. Experience the refreshed feel at Kitchen Notes inside the Omni Nashville Hotel.
D-Mace, Finn Ginadonic, 1025, 1063. The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen here talking UC Saros and the UC Saros conundrum some people tend to be having. Willie, you wanted to make a point about the contract, and I wanted to add to this before you get into it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I looked up the cap hits for goalies next season, active goalies. By my rough count, UC Saros next season will have the 9th highest cap hit in the NHL among goalies, behind Igor Shesterkin with the Rangers, Sergei Bobrovsky with the Panthers, Andrei Vasilevsky with the Lightning, Connor Hellebuck with the Jets, Jeremy Swayman with the Bruins, Linus Ullmark with the Senators, Ilya Sorokin with the Islanders, and Jake Ottinger of the Stars. So Saros' $7.74 million cap hit comes underneath all of them. The NHL announced today that the salary cap is exploding, and this is where you wanted to go to next.
Right, because I think what goes with that is the percentage of the cap. There are a lot that have been worrying from the time that this negotiation was going on, and they were weighing and many people arguing that they should just ride the wave of the hope that Yaroslav Askarov would be the next big thing, and you could keep him relatively cheaper for longer. And in this day and age, maybe you don't pay the goalies. Well, since then, as you just pointed out, Adam, several teams have decided to pay their goalies because a lot of those contracts that you just mentioned were just signed in the last 6 to 8
Swayman,
months,
Allmark,
right?
Ottinger for sure.
Right.
Shesterkin.
And I don't think Shesterkin has played up to what he just signed for, right? He hasn't been superstar. All goalies have a little bit of ebb and flow. You mentioned Swayman. That's an extreme example. He held out, and he is well below 900 in the save percentage, which, again, 900 is almost exactly league average. The league average is only 901. So when Jared says that stinks, under 900 would have been stinky 10 years ago when the league average was 915. But the league average is 901. So a 900 save percentage is essentially average. That doesn't stink. League average doesn't stink. Again, expectations are higher for UC Saros than the average goalie. But let's talk about the contract. Pekka Rinne signed a 7-year, $7 million contract, right? So his best years, he was making $7 million a year, including the off year that I just referenced in the last segment, 2015-16. That year, when he was a 908 save percentage and the league average was 915, he made 9.8% of the Predators' salary cap. 9.8%. And that assumes that the Predators spent to the cap, which I don't know if they did or not, but let's just go with 9.8% of the ceiling. In year 2 of Saros's new contract, which will be $7.74 million, he'll be making only 7.4% of the cap. And then in year 3, where the cap is expected to go to $113 million, he'll make only 6.8% of the cap. So that's 3% less. So if you're worried that you're paying the goalie too much money, he is going to be, I think, a bargain at that point. Now we have to assume that he's going to stay in shape and can stay consistent into his 30s, which Pekka Rinne did, right? 2 years after Pekka Rinne had that off year in 2016. In 2018, he won the Vezina Trophy, and he won that when he was, 35 years old. He was 35 when he won the Vezina. So UC Saros has got a long way to go with longevity to prove that he's the caliber of Pekka Rinne. But we got a long road ahead here, and there's so many other questions that they have that I think are bigger concerns than UC Saros, who I think is still a really good bet long term. And he's not going to kill your salary cap because he took less money to stay. 7.74 sounds like a lot. It would have been a lot 10 years ago, but now, as I just mentioned, it's a way lower percentage of the cap than Pekka Rinne was making in his heyday.
Greg is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunted.com. Greg, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. I've been listening. I've been a hockey fan since the 1980s, and let me tell you, Saros is not the issue. It's the quality of shots you're seeing from the defense is not blocking and letting them through. You've got your best defenseman at a plus minus 21, Yossi, which is horrible. And then you got your offense to your main line, like Philip Forsberg is my favorite player, and he's at a negative 10 on plus minus. So it just shows that the whole team is bad. They're not working, and to jump on the goalie, who I just feel that's just the wrong person and the wrong problem. That's not the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for the call, Greg. And I think
those are good points.
I think one of the reasons why Jared, again, went scorched earth on Saros yesterday is, Willie, you and I have made the point many times that UC Saros was their best player over the first 20-25 games of the season. It wasn't reflected in the win-loss record. But we've said if it weren't for UC Saros, they'd be even further down the standings. To which Jared's response is, well, isn't it the responsibility of an elite goalie to steal more games and prevent those winning streaks from ballooning. You did mention the goal support numbers. I agree with you on that front, that UC Saros's margin for error this season is so incredibly thin. You look at a goalie like Connor Hellebuck, for example, who is considered the best goalie in
He's
the
going to win the
NHL.
Vezina. He's going to win the Vezina.
He could win the Hart Trophy as well as the MVP. Goalies don't typically win MVP awards, but he could. Connor Hellebuck has been given 3.65 goals per game in terms of goal support. 3.65. He hasn't really needed them because he's been so good. But the margin for error for Connor Hellebuck is way bigger than it's been for UC Saros this season.
Way bigger. And Connor Hellebuck, if you want to nitpick, has had a year or two where he hasn't been as lights out.
What
as
about
the
his
other
playoff
years.
series last year
Right, well,
against the Colorado Avalanche? He gave up, I think, 20-something goals in 5 games.
Yeah, he had a rough one, and that wasn't all him, right? The Avalanche got going, and I'm not sure there was a whole lot he could do about it. But he won the Vezina, and his team was out quickly in the first round. So that's a good example. And I again, to Jared's specific point, though, when you give up 2 goals in regulation or less, you are doing just about everything you can possibly do. Again, in the context of they are the 24th best team defense, right? I'm generalizing, but that's the mark I look at. Expected goals against per 60 minutes even strength. They are 24th in the league out of 32 teams. That's not good defense. And they're one of the lowest scoring teams in the league. So when you give up 2 or less, you should win some games. They have lost 10 games, 5 in regulation and 5 in overtime, where he has given up 2 goals over 60 minutes. That's hard to do. That's some bad luck. That is, you'd have to be Superman. And he hasn't had a Superman year. I grant you that.
Wayne on our text line says, technically, could Saros be traded since his new contract doesn't kick in until July 1st? Technically, the answer is yes. If the Predators wanted to trade UC Saros before next season, they could, because his current contract does not have that no movement clause. But I imagine it would be bad for business if the Predators traded someone they just signed to an 8-year contract before that contract starts.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
It's also not going to happen.
Look, I'm sure Jared will ask Barry Trotz about evaluating UC Saros, and I would be surprised if Barry Trotz says, "Yeah, I think Juice has had a good year." He hasn't, but neither has any player on the Predators. Zero. Not compared to expectation level. Tell me a guy, maybe Fedor Svechkov, maybe a rookie, maybe a guy like Zach Leroux. Very few. Even at the very top, Marchessault, Stamkos, Forsberg, as much as they've come on, they're below what the expectation level was. So to single out UC Saros is the wrong way to go. Saros has been below his expectation. Every Predator has been below their expectation.
Again, and Willie, this is the question that, I asked C. Mason, in regards to, UC. And I know what you can make it black and white if you want to, but then there's a bunch of nuances. There's things within his play that he's not totally in control of. And, the team has to be better in front of him. He has to be better as well, but the team has to be better in front of him. And they were not a lot of times this year. And there were times that he wasn't good when he needed to, but to just believe or insinuate that now all of a sudden UC's not the guy. It takes more than, a slump for me to get there. Again, do I believe he needs to play better? Absolutely. I think he needs to 100%. Play better. But his play hasn't put me in a position where I'm thinking like, man, they made a bad decision in signing him to that long-term deal. I don't think that's the case. I think ultimately the contract will be a well-earned contract. And just like any contract, as you come to the end of it, then you start making decisions, whether it's one of the greatest players or a really good player.
The Predators are back in action tonight against the Buffalo Sabres pregame at 6.
Bro, you better
Sorry, puck
put
drop
some
at
respect
6.
on my on UC's name. I don't mess with UC, man.
Puck drop at 6. Pregame at 5 because they are in Buffalo. Puck drop at 6. Pregame at 5 right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game as well. You can catch Willie and Chris Mason and the crew on FanDuel Sports Network.
Can
I'm
I ask
biased.
one question, Adam?
I'm biased
Yes.
when it comes to UC.
Yes, Willie.
As we're wrapping up this discussion, which I assume we are,
Yes.
do you think Jared has listened to anything I've said?
No.
And it's absorbed and say, you know what?
Definitely
Let
not.
me look at. Do you
This
think
is
Jared
what-
would take a look and say, let's take a look at what Willie's saying. He's got a point there. I'm a big Braves fan. Yeah, John Smoltz has had an off year here and there. Tom Glavine has.
May I do a Jared impression before we go? It's not going to be a great impression.
Well, you don't need to because I already know. He just doesn't listen.
I know,
to-
but
to
basically
anybody
this
else.
is what he's going to say. And Willie said he was mentioning expected goals this or whatever the heck that is, and goals support that.
Right.
Here's my response. I don't care. He doesn't win in the playoffs. He stinks.
Right. In other
That's
words,
going to be his response.
Jared doesn't want to do his homework. Jared doesn't want to do research. So you can either listen to me, who has given you facts. I'm giving you numbers. I'm supporting them with facts. Jared is going to cherry pick one stat, save percentage, which is a very on the surface stat. There's a lot of interpretation of you, and just take it and run with it. He stinks. You make the choice. Who do you want to listen to, Jared or me? You could say, hey, Willie's the announcer for the Predators. Yeah, he's going to back Saros. I am. I'm not telling you that he's elite. He hasn't had a good year, but I'm giving you context. You make the choice. Listen to Jared or listen to me. I love you, Jared.
The choice is yours and yours alone. 615-737-1025.
I'm still waiting for the day. I don't know what I would do if Jared ever started a show. You know what? I was listening to Willie today. He made some really good points, and I've changed my view. If that ever happens, guys, I don't know what's going to happen. Is the world going to stop or something? I just don't know what would happen if that ever happened.
I'm getting late breaking news.
When I went to dinner last night with Hal, Mace, and Lindsay,
Mm-hmm.
I did not hear Hal's interview with Jared. I walked into the restaurant, and Hal's head was smoking. He got really.
He did get worked up.
Yeah.
He did get worked up. But I'm getting
He
late
was
breaking
still
news
steamed.
that hell is freezing over when Jared Stillman agrees with Willie Donick. 615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the week by taking it to the bank. Coming up next, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D. Mays, Fingen, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company coming up next at 2 o'clock. But before we get to Jared, it's time to take it to the bank with F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. David Janes, let's recap our selections from last week.
All right, gentlemen. So first off, Adam, you've said this entire week. You
I
said
nailed
it in the group
it.
chat. You nailed it.
4 for
And
4.
Congratulations on that. You did great. You said Jaden would only have one or fewer passing touchdowns. He only had one touchdown. You said the Eagles would beat the Commies. They did by a lot, might I add. You said Kansas City would beat the Bills. Until you see it, in which none of us have seen it yet.
Right.
No one's beating the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think this is probably one more impressive part. So you got the over right too of 48.5. I haven't done.
I believe it was 61 or 62 combined points.
Something like that. Yeah. So you got a total, which again, if you get 4 for 4, Willie. All right, listen. You hearing? If you get 4 for 4, you get 12 points.
Yay!
So
whoa, when did this start?
You
When
get
did
a
this
bonus
start?
for being perfect.
Will, all right, listen, D-Mace,
You get a bonus for being perfect.
Yeah, you get.
Oh wow!
You get 12 points.
All right.
It's a
All
dozen.
right.
It's a dozen.
Okay.
I'm not gonna give you a
Okay.
baker's dozen, but it's a dozen.
Da-na-na-na-na-na-na.
And so, Adam, because of D-Mace's bad, luck from last week, you're now in the lead.
Hot diggity.
So, D-Mace, you said Marchie would get a goal and the
Mhm.
Preds would win. That did not happen. You said Saquon would get over 90. That did happen. And Allen would get a touching or a running and passing touchdown. He only got 2 passing touchdowns.
Dang it.
So you
Well,
got
shouldn't I
total-
get some points for that?
Yeah, no,
Got
you
two
do.
passing
You do.
touchdowns.
No.
Okay.
No. You don't get points for that.
Oh man,
You-
come
you-
on.
You said both. You said both.
All right.
And so you only got 2 points because Saquon went over 90. He went over 100.
The guy
Which,
has
again,
60-yard touchdowns every week.
I know.
I'm just saying the degree of difficulty on 90.
I don't want to hear the degree.
That's why I gave him 2. I gave him
no,
2 points.
It's the playoffs.
I gave him-
No, it's the you got okay. Degree of difficulty. When
Willie
it's the
said
play-
100.
when
Willie
it's-
said 100.
When it's the
I did.
playoffs,
I
anything
expect
over
to be
60
scored
yards.
accordingly.
Anything over 60 yards. Anything over 60 yards is good.
You said 90. I
Yeah.
gave you points. I gave you 2 points.
Okay.
All right.
Derek with 2
With
points.
a total of
10-point swing this week between Derek and I.
114.
Oh man. See?
Now, now, Willie, you didn't have the best week just because you said
No, I didn't.
Auburn plus 7.5. Auburn won, but it wasn't by 7.5
In basketball.
in basketball.
By
We
2.
got to make sure we got to say that. You also said the Raiders would win. Yeah, we don't got to talk about that anymore. But
That didn't go well.
no, it did not. It did not. You said Saquon would go over 100, which you get one more point than
Oh,
D-Mace because you said over 100.
Seriously.
Okay, so 118 total yards. Who are you going to give more points to? The one who said 90 or the one who said 100?
100.
Yeah, there you go. So one more point.
Perfectly
That's-
logical.
Exactly.
Of course, it's logical because the points are going to you, Willie.
I agree with David and Willie on this one, Derek.
Thank
because
you,
he
Adam.
gave you a perfect score.
Well, you just didn't have a perfect week like I did, so that's on you.
damn.
How did you do this week, David?
I didn't do that good either. I
Oh,
said
man.
Forsberg would score a goal. That did not happen. I said Josh Allen would throw for 2 touchdowns, and he did. Shout out Josh Allen. But I just said the Bills and Commies would win, and that did not happen.
All
So I got a
right.
total of 3 points.
So what are the updated standings?
So the update standing is this. Adam, you have 115. Demis, you have 114. So again, it's close. It's neck and neck. Will, you have 96, and I have 84.
Is next week our last week of this with the Super Bowl?
I think it's to the NCAA tournament, right, Willie? Or when is it?
How long do we
At
do
the
this
end of the
until?
Final Four.
At the end of the
Okay.
Final Four. Okay.
Okay, all right. So it's not over yet. But since I'm back in the lead, I'm going first. And because there is no football this weekend, all of my picks are college basketball. We'll start in the SEC. John Calipari and his Arkansas Razorbacks are traveling to Lexington. So John Calipari's return to Kentucky this weekend. I saw on FanDuel, Kentucky is being given 11.5. I say the Wildcats cover. Give me Kentucky minus 11.5 against Arkansas. Vanderbilt on the road at Oklahoma. I think Vanderbilt needs a marquee road win. I say they get it. The Commodores defeat the Sooners on the road. A top 10 matchup in the SEC, Florida at Tennessee. Give me the Gators on the road in Knoxville against the Vols. And finally, in my completely unbiased opinion, the greatest rivalry in all of college sports.
Oh, it's about to be biased. It's going to be so biased right now.
Yeah, come on.
The University of North Carolina and Duke in basketball tomorrow
You're
at
going for
Cameron
Carolina,
Indoor
right?
Stadium. Hear me out. I am not. I am hopeful that my Blue Devils will win. FanDuel has Duke minus 13.5. I'm going to say that Carolina covers. I think Duke wins, but I don't think it's going to be by 13.5. Duke hasn't been playing that well lately. It's a rivalry game. I hope that the Blue Devils will prevail, but I do think that Carolina will cover. I see plus 13.5. Those are my selections.
Okay. Who's next?
Derek.
All right. All right. I'm going to start off with my Spartans. They got SC. They got to travel out to California. So that in itself will be a tall task. They got to travel out to Southern Cal to play Cal. So I got the Spartans winning that game by more than 10 points. Okay. And then I have Auburn, Ole Miss. I got the upset. Ole Miss to beat Auburn. They play at Ole Miss. And then I got UT to beat Florida this weekend and Vandy to beat Oklahoma. That's my 4, right? Mm-hmm. All right. I was going to throw a little caveat in there.
Really?
Yeah, but I chose not to.
All right. I too am going to go with some college hoops here. I as I normally do, I'm going to steer clear of Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is an underdog at Oklahoma. This is going to be a really intriguing game to me. Oklahoma has a lot of really good shooters. They spread the court. They're very well coached offensively, but they lack the big dudes. Like we know that when you play Auburn, Auburn's got dudes in the middle. Missouri, for example, has got dudes, big monsters in the middle. Kentucky's got some dudes. Oklahoma is a little undersized, kind of like Vanderbilt. I think it's going to be a really good game. That being said, I'm going to go. I will say that. I think this Tennessee game is a huge game for Tennessee.
Huge.
They really need to bounce back, and Florida is really, really good. That said, I think Tennessee will rally and find a way to win. I will go with the Vols on Saturday there. I will also go. I will take Duke to cover against North Carolina. I do think that
You said it, not me.
are quite a bit better. I think they're quite a bit better. They won 14 in a row. They're playing at Cameron Indoor, which I do think, you tell me, Adam, home court isn't quite as big in that game. I've seen the road team do fine in that game more often than not. I don't think, one team whips the other because they're at home. The rivalry just kind of cancels that out to a degree. But that said, I just think Duke is that good. I think they'll pull away late against Carolina. What did you say it was? 13.5, Adam?
13.5. Duke minus 13.5.
Okay. And what do we have on the line? Arkansas, Kentucky.
I saw 11.5. Kentucky minus 11.5.
Kentucky minus 11.5. I think that's going to be some amazing theater. So I got to get on some of that action. And I'm going to say Kentucky covers against Arkansas.
Did you see the video that Rick Pitino put out? He just randomly put out a Twitter video saying everyone should give John Calipari a big round of applause. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
You don't think so?
No.
I'll bet you he gets a standing ovation. In fact, that'll be my thing. I think he will get a standing ovation from the Kentucky fans.
So is that replacing the Kentucky covering pick?
No, that's an addition. Isn't that my 4th pick?
Whoa, check it.
Hold on.
I will. It both have to happen.
Okay.
Both have to happen.
So you said you picked Florida and Tennessee. You picked Duke, Carolina. You picked Kentucky and Arkansas, and a standing ovation for John Calipari.
Yeah.
So that's the 4th thing.
Yes.
So those are separate, 2 separate ones.
All right.
Yes.
David.
Hold on. So he said that John Calipari will get a
standing ovation from the Kentucky faithful.
That is not. I mean, come on. Seriously.
What
are the betting odds on that?
You're only doing this because you're losing. You're only doing this because you're losing.
You guys just told me he's going to get booed.
Well, I didn't say he was going to get
I
booed.
said he was going to get booed.
I'll do this quickly. So I think PJ Haggerty of the Memphis Tigers, I think he'll score over 20 points against Rice on Sunday. Now, again, Memphis has been really good. I think they're going to win as well, but it's PJ Haggerty. He's going to score over 20. And again, I'm a diehard Tennessee Vol hater. I'm never going to pick the Vols to the win, but I don't like Florida either. So I'm going to choose Tennessee to win.
You're all going Tennessee. I'm the lone person to win Florida in this one. All right.
I'm going to do it because I think I love seeing the Kentucky faithful sad. I think that Calipari is going to go to Rupp Arena and beat those Kentucky
Has Arkansas
Wildcats.
won an SEC game yet?
Yeah, no, they won one. They won one.
Okay.
Again, it's gonna be an emotional game. I just have a feeling. And
All
also
right.
tonight on 94.9 The Fan, Indiana versus Purdue. I think Indiana will beat Purdue. I just think it's time.
Okay.
All right.
Those are
my
our
picks.
selections for Take It to the Bank. Here's hoping I have another perfect week and all of you stink. Just like you have a save percentage of under 900. But that will do it for us this week. Enjoy what's supposed to be a beautiful weekend, I think, especially on Sunday. Enjoy the warmth, enjoy the sun. Enjoy the Nashville Predators tonight against the Buffalo Sabres. Puck drop at 6, pregame at 5, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company coming up next.
Be love on your people. Have a blessed, wonderful, and safe weekend. Peace.
Duval.